Hey everyone, welcome back to Diaries of a 20-something. I'm Paige Marquez, your host, and this is episode 3. Today we're going to be diving into all things relationships, so definitely get comfortable because this one's going to be interesting. So before we really get into the nitty-gritty of relationships, I think it's really important to discuss why relationships in our 20s are so important. While they might be horrible and traumatizing and just mind-altering, they are very important in the sense where, like, even in your 20s without relationships, you learn so much about yourself, and it's a wonderful thing, it really is. But then when you add dating into the mix, you're not only learning just so much about yourself, but you're learning so much about other people. And I think that is really important to realize. And, like, even when relationships fail, you're just one person closer to the right one. Or at least that's what I tell myself to comfort myself. And, I am 22 years old. I started dating, getting involved with men when I was 14, or I guess boys at that time, when I was 14. And so I've been dating and doing all of this for 8 years, which is just even crazy to think about. And there are 2 main things I've learned in these 8 years. 1, Cupid hates me. And 2, there are 3 main types of relationships. You have real relationships, where I'm talking about, official boyfriends. And then you have physical relationships, which I don't really think I need to explain much. No strings attached, mutual benefit. I'll say that. And then you have situationships, which honestly is the worst thing to ever happen to somebody. I've had all 3 types. But when it comes to real relationships, I've only really ever had one real boyfriend before, and he was a good guy. It was a very, big puppy love relationship. It was sweet. He actually ended up tattooing my name to him. I did not ask him to do this, but he did do it. And that ended up making it really difficult for me to break up with him in the end, because I was like, oh my God, what is he going to do? I'm permanently on his arm. Yeah, it was like a joke. It was like a joke. He was like, I'm going to tattoo my name. And I was like, no, you're not. And then he actually did. Keep in mind, this was also 4 months into the relationship. If you're a guy and you're watching this, never tattoo anybody's name. Or actually, anybody's watching this, never tattoo anybody's name to your body, especially if they're just a boyfriend, or a girlfriend. Don't do it. I have a big fear of tattoos. My sister wants to get a matching tattoo with me, and I'm just I don't even know. I'm so scared. Speaks to my commitment issues, I guess. What are you gonna do? I'm just really careful about who I date. I'm not great at commitment. I'm not great at being in healthy relationships. I will admit I am the problem most of the time. I just never settle. And I think that's why, I've been single or not single, but I haven't been in a real relationship in 5 years. Maybe I protected my peace a little too hard, because now I don't even know how to do it. I don't even know how to be a girlfriend or go on dates or anything like that, because I'm just so out of practice. But what are you gonna do? But even when it comes to finding a boyfriend, navigating the dating world, I guess you could say, there's so many ways to meet men, but unfortunately, online dating is so present now, and I really do think it makes everything so much more superficial and just harder, especially just in today's culture. I think hookup culture is probably bigger than it was 30 years ago. I can imagine. I say that because I feel when you go out to a bar, you're meeting guys, or whatever, you meet guys wherever you go. It's so rare to find a guy that actually wants a relationship. Online dating is while it is superficial, it's also scary. You could be a murderer. You know what I mean? And then what? I feel whenever you meet a guy, the red flags are so clear in the beginning, and the way that they're just so widely ignored is actually really interesting to me. How do you let that happen? Ignoring them in the beginning is so easy, because there's so much new. It's like, it's so new, it's exciting, it's, the attractions at like the highest level, I'd say. And in my experience and from what I've learned, ignoring them and dealing with them later is 10 times worse than just dealing with them in the beginning and just nipping them in the butt, or just not going further with said man, whoever it may be. I've seen it happen so many times to my friends, so many red flags in the beginning, but it's all like love is blind, And I think it gets really easy to ignore the red flags, and then they just become really terrible situations later. While the honeymoon phase is great, I would rather have no honeymoon phase than have a honeymoon phase that is covering up all of the red flags and awful. But also, like, once you get into relationships, I think balance is really important. I see it all the time with my friends now as well. Like, learning how to be in a relationship but like still be an individual person, I think, is the key to having a healthy relationship. You need to be able to have your own life, and they need to be able to have their own life, and then you guys just share the feelings that you have together and like experience new things together. But like, you need to learn how to like still be the same person that you were before. It's okay to grow, it's okay to change a little bit, but you can't just lose sight of who you are. And like, that also goes down to like balancing time and time apart. And I feel like it's really tricky, like I said, because especially in the honeymoon phase, I mean, you want to be with that person all the time. But like, when you're able to have time apart and be comfortable in that time apart, are you okay if you don't text him for an entire day? Like, is that okay with you? Are you okay with not seeing them for a week? What would your mental state be like if you weren't to see them for a week? Unfortunately, with all relationships, there's always an end. I mean, till death do us part. I mean, that's an ending too, I guess. Dealing with breakup is so tricky because I feel like there's no right way to do it. Everyone's different. Everyone has different coping strategies. Everybody wants to indulge into what makes them feel better, and that's fine. Like, I don't know. Throughout my time, I've seen my friends and just people in general date many, many people. I know some girls who, after a breakup, like to sleep around. I know girls who have started drinking a lot. It's just like whatever you're good with, I guess. But like, personally, me, I just shut everything out. I mean, not just with relationships, but like everything, honestly. Like, I've always been the kind of person to like just shove all my emotions down and just like deal with it later mentality, which honestly is awful. It's good because it won't really affect you, and you can like get right back into like where you were before and like stay being productive. And there have been a lot of times for me where I was like fine for a year and a half, and then I just had like breakdowns last a couple months. And I think that's why, because it just builds and builds and builds and builds. And then one day, you wake up and you're like, I'm going crazy. I just don't think it's that beneficial in the long run. Like, maybe in the short term, I think it is, but in the long run, no. I just have never been the kind of person to process my emotions. I've always been like, I don't know if it's the right word to say, unempathetic. Maybe that's the right word. I don't vocalize my emotions. I kind of keep them in, and I just like, whatever. I don't know what's worse, honestly. Like, crying all day or like not. Like I've said, I've had a lot of dating experience in my life because I'm old. And I have noticed one trend throughout all my relationships that really starts to make sense over time. And that is that I self-destruct. I can't help it. I can feel when it's about to happen. I just do it every time. I'm the kind of person where if I'm in a healthy relationship, it scares me so much that if there is no problems, I will create a problem. Like, I remember this one time I was driving with my friend Sage, and I recently got back with my ex-boyfriend at that time because I was bored. I'm like sitting in the car with her, and I'm like creating all these problems that aren't really problems, but just trying to kind of like excuses on why I should break up with him for the sixth time. And that's like the first time that I actually realized it. She like kind of said something to the effect of, are you just creating problems so you can get out? Self-destructing, essentially. It also comes down to like the future for me, because I worry so much about the future, specifically my career. I've always been a very career-oriented person. Like, I don't have a goal to get married one day. I have a goal to like have my career flourish. Like, I love what I do and I want it to go exactly like I plan. I know it takes a lot of hard work and I put in the work, but when I'm single, I can think straight. But as soon as a man enters my life, I can't think straight anymore. I just like don't know how to handle anything or respond to anything. And it could be because of lack of experience. While I've had a lot of experience, I also have had like none, you know? But I come up with all these what if scenarios like, oh, this won't work because I want to move to New York, or this won't work because this and that, whatever. Like, why are you worried about all these hypothetical things when literally you could just enjoy it? I texted my mom the other day. She went on a date with the guy that I talked about in the last episode. And she was like, I don't know how to do this. I was like, just be in the moment. Don't overthink it. Just have fun. And it's like, if only I could do that. Like, why am I so good at giving relationship advice, but when it comes to my own, it's like a train wreck? If only you guys knew. I mean, you're about to. I'm really just going to air out my dirty laundry to you guys right now. I'm going to take you guys through a couple of my most mind-altering situationships I've ever had in my life. Starting with bachelor number 1. Met him freshman year of college. He was a bartender and I was with my mom and she was like, oh, he's super cute. I was like, oh my God, I know, like whatever. We hit it off. We were just hanging out all the time. And it was like more of a physical relationship. And I knew that. It was convenient. He was there. I was there. However, I would say around sophomore year, beginning of sophomore year, I started to get really obsessive. And that is something I also do when I really start to like a guy, like get obsessed. You know, he's on and off with his ex-girlfriend. So I'm like with him and then I'm not with him. So I'm basically just following along. So like when he's single, I'm there. And then he would just like ghost me for like a month because they got back together or whatever. Now, this is when the situation gets tricky. And I'm going to say this right now. I am not a homewrecker. Okay. I'm glad we cleared the air. However, it all started to go downhill around October because I asked him to go to my sorority semi-formal with me. He was all like, oh, I have to check with work, like whatever, I'll let you know. And I had like a month and a half. I wasn't worried about it. I was like, we're good. And at this point in the relationship, I am obsessed. I'm in love with this man. I'm like, I need him. Like, I don't want anybody else. You know, it was like a really unhealthy attachment. I asked him 3 weeks later, like, hey, did you get off work? Can you get off work? Can you come? Can you not? But then he started making all these weird excuses and like really dodging the question. And I was like, what is going on? Turns out he never broke up with his girlfriend of 4 years. So he had a relationship with 2 different women. And it was even worse because she was a year older than me. So was he. And she knew a lot of people on UF Panhellenic. She went and told a bunch of people that I was a homewrecker. I wasn't a homewrecker. But, you know, when I found out, it was devastating to me. I was like, what the? I was like, you need to choose me. Like, I'm telling you guys, I was desperate. Like, I was literally pulling a Meredith Grey, like in that whole love triangle situation, season 2. Like, that was me. I was Meredith Grey. And I was like, pick me, choose me, love me, like literally. And he wouldn't. So I told her everything. And then she told everybody I was a homewrecker, which I'm not a homewrecker. I didn't know. Those were good times. That really messed me up. After him, I didn't get involved with a man for like a really long time. Like a really long time. Like I went celibate. I was like, no men. And then he eventually moved to Canada. That's the last I heard. I don't know anything else. I'm blocked on everything. Even on LinkedIn. I'm blocked on LinkedIn, guys. Whatever. So that was awful. And that was something that I really hope I never experience ever again. Not even something similar. Like, I can't do that again. That was really dehumanizing and, like, really tragic for me. And not only me, but, like, everybody else around me. Because, like, this was my life. Like, this relationship was all I talked about all I did anything for. It was awful. It was really awful. Anyway, then we have bachelor number 2. I really wish I could use their names, but I don't want to be like sued for defamation or slander or something like that. So I think we're just gonna. So bachelor number 2, I met my senior year of college. He was, very stereotypical Christian country boy, and that's not my usual type. I don't really go for that. But, he was really sweet, and I was like, this could work, and he was a relationship guy, actually, but I wasn't. So this boy, he happened to live in the same apartment building as me. And that's how we met, because I was working as I did like leasing and whatever for like my apartment building that I lived at. And that's how I met him. He was great. He was very nice, but he was very hot and cold with me. And I couldn't figure out why, because like there was so much chemistry. We would see each other all the time. But then when it really came down to it, nothing. Like nothing. And I would just like, it happened enough times for me to be like, what is the issue? Because I've never had this issue before. Like he just wouldn't, like, I don't know what the word is, be intimate with me. So, eventually I get really frustrated with it, because I'm like, this isn't even a relationship. Like, we're basically just friends that flirt. It's like stupid. I went to cut it off. It was kind of like a game to me, because the longer that we went without it, the more I was like, I need to do it just to do it, because it's like unattainable. Like, I love the chase. I love the chase. And eventually it was his birthday, which was October. October is just not a good month for me when it comes to men. It just really isn't. October is the scary month. So it's October, it's his birthday. And I'm like, okay, I feel like I could make this happen. We hang out. We both went out that night separately. And then after, I was like, oh, do you want to hang out? He was like, yeah. So he came over to my apartment, and it happened. And it was, whatever. Like, it was just like one of those things where it's like, that was like kind of disappointing, but whatever. And then he got really weird with me. He was like, I don't want to see you. Like, you make me really uncomfortable. Like, literally just like, he didn't say it, but he tried to like put together this narrative about how like I like took advantage of him. Keep in mind, he's 6'3" and like very muscular and whatever. I like honestly, like whatever. Like, I didn't, for the record, but it was just crazy because he was going around and like telling people this, and I didn't know that until I ran into one of our mutual friends, and she was like, oh yeah, like he told me like the blah 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 blah, and I was like, what? I was like, girl, what? Like, you have to be joking right now. So that was just really awful. But it gets worse because he was another bartender at one of my favorite bars in Gainesville. It was called The Swamp. And I felt like I couldn't go there anymore because I was like, he was always working. And I was like, you're ruining my senior year. You know what I mean? I remember this one night. God, I wish Jane was here. I was with my friend Jane and with my friend Max. He calls me at like, it was late. It was like 11:30 on a Tuesday night. And I'm like, what the hell? You know what I mean? Like, I answer it because, do it for the plot. And he's all like asking me like this like super random question on whether he or not like he should feel bad about like getting off from work. He like requested time off and he got it. And he was like, oh, I think I should feel bad. I was like, you're not actually calling me for this. Like, we haven't talked in a month. Then you call me for that after telling everybody that I make you uncomfortable and I took advantage of you and like all this, and like that's what you're going to call me for? Please. So me being me, I start going off on him and I'm like, listen, like I don't really have like time for this conversation. Jane and Max are dying. They are literally like on the floor laughing. Like, I wish I had a video of this phone call. Oh my God, it was just so ridiculous. Like, actually so ridiculous. Like, he was like asking me all these like weird questions. I was like, I don't really want to talk to you. Like, I don't really feel good today. Like, and he was like, are you pregnant? And I was like, bro, like this man was so crazy. He was literally crazy. Like, off the charts. Something was actually wrong with him. Nobody acts like that. Like, really? Really? You think I'm pregnant? What, because I'm upset? I haven't talked to him since. Then we have bachelor number 3, who I have been involved with on and off for 4 years now. My longest situationship to date. We started the summer before college. We were in this big friend group. It was honestly the best summer of my life. Summer 2020 will just always be my favorite thing in the world. So we were part of this like big friend group, and we were hanging out all the time. Like every day we were at the beach. Every day there was always a house party after, because like the friend group was so big. There was like always like a place to go where parents weren't there. I'm gonna have to debrief that summer with Elizabeth one day. But I met him and I immediately liked him. I was like, oh my God. But he actually just got out of a really long relationship, and he was all like, oh, I'm not ready, like whatever. I was like, okay, well, I'm about to go to college, so I'm not looking for anything really either at the time. But you know me. I start really liking him, then I get obsessive, then he gets scared of me and runs away, which like honestly warranted. But like we kept seeing each other like every time I came home for breaks. Oh my God. And right before I went to college, so me and my best friend had a falling out. That lasted honestly a couple years. And me and him, I almost said his name. Me and him also had a falling out around the same time. So I'm in college at this point. I'm not talking to either of them, but we still all have this big group chat. A picture was sent of my friend, I'm not going to say who, with hickeys all over her neck in the group chat. And I was like, no way. I was like, no way, dude. Like, this is not happening to me. But exactly what you're thinking right now did happen. And it was horrible. But of course, I still went back to him because, like, why wouldn't I? You know what I mean? Like, Jesus, like, he's so great. Due to those relationships, I find myself, you know, like, and I'm sure you guys do as well. I mean, like, I think we all have issues when it comes to past relationships affecting our present. Like, I shut out a lot of feelings day to day because of those past relationships. The reason that I love being single is because, honestly, I can think straight. And, like, I'm so scared of losing sight of what I want and what I want to be. And that is always what happens when I get into relationships, because I get so excited. I get obsessed. After a lot of self-reflecting and everything, I've done, you know, I've been to therapy. I have done all that, but I'm like a chronic therapy quitter. I start it and I quit it. It's just like nonstop, honestly. That's a total other episode. We'll get into that. But it's like exclusivity and commitment like put so much pressure on me. Like I need a constant challenge, you know? Like whether like the guy I'm with is like challenging me. Like I just like need a challenge. I need like something to make my like the gears turn, you know? But like at the same time, like as much as I hate commitment and I hate exclusivity and everything, or I don't hate it, I'm just horrified of it. I would also never be in an open relationship either. And you know, like through all like the therapy that I've quit on many, many times, you know, like I do have a disorganized attachment style, which makes a lot of sense. And that is why I self-destruct it. I would rather do something wrong and like self-destruct a relationship than end up embarrassed from like something that a man did. I am not the girl that's going to be embarrassed by a man. Like, I just won't let that happen. I have so much pride and my ego is honestly too large. Like, I just can't have that. But, you know, I think it's also important to note that relationships do change over time because, like, bachelor number 3, I am in a healthy relationship with him now. But, you know, it's tricky because I'm in a healthy relationship with somebody that hurt me a lot in the past. And I'm not going to sit here and like just like play the victim. Like I hurt him a lot too. It's definitely hard, you know, because like as much as it's like, okay, clean slate, I'm like, we're really working like on bettering ourselves separately and together. But it's hard to just forget about all the stuff in the past, you know, and I'm sure it's hard for him as well. I mean, like I'm not the easiest person to be involved with on a romantic level. I wonder if any of my exes watch this podcast. I'm giving myself JoJo Siwa vibes right now. Ew. Ugh. But yeah, it's definitely hard to let go of what our relationship used to be and give it a clean slate. I mean, it's just trust issues. It really just comes down to trust. And or lack of in that matter. I'm just trying to take my own advice that I give my mom. Don't overthink it. Just take it one day at a time and just have fun. On to the next note. My sister is my best friend in the whole world. And while we have had a definitely chaotic relationship, I love her through and through. The relationship between sisters is just so chaotic and so fun, but like so loving at the same time. She's going to be a guest next week, and we're going to talk about all things sisterhood. So I'm super excited for next week's episode, and I hope you guys are too. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode, and definitely stay tuned for next week for when my sister is a guest. She's a little nervous because she's very introverted. However, I think she'll do a great job. I know she'll do a great job. And this was Diaries of a 20-something episode 3.